Hey everybody, Eric here from Action Yu-Gi-Oh! And today at my locals, I got first place with Code Talkers. Now this was the first locals where Firewall Dragon was legal with its new errata, so it does change up the deck enough, in my opinion, to warrant a new deck profile to explain some of the changes. So let's go ahead and get on into that so that you can see the new updated deck. So the first card that we played, super obvious, we played triple Microcoder. Now Microcoder, if you don't know, you can use it from hand for the summon of a Code Talker monster, and then it lets you search for a Synec spell or trap card, so it lets you search for the counter trap, an additional normal summon, or Synec Codec. Next card that we played was double Code Generator. Now Code Generator is the same as Microcoder in that you can use it from hand for the summon of a Code Talker monster, and then it's a Foolish Burial. The next card we played was two Code Radiators. Just like the other two, you can use it from hand for the summon of a Code Talker monster, and then you can target a monster your opponent controls, and it cannot be, its effects are negated and its attack becomes 0. And all of these have an additional effect that you can use from field. The only one that I ever really worry about is Code Radiator. If it's used from field for the summon of a Code Talker monster, you can target 2 instead of just 1, so you can negate 2 monsters and set them to 0. Very useful for OTKs and getting rid of problem cards like Winda. The next card that we played was triple Lady Debug. Search for a level 3 or lower Cyber's monster on summon. It's a starter. It's pretty self-explanatory. Now the first big change that I did was I went and I upped Ibli to a 3 of instead of a 2 of. This card is a lot more lethal now that you have Firewall Dragon to back it up. Additionally, Ibli prevents like Nibiru and any of the other hand traps that are potentially hazardous to you, such as like Gamma or Phantasme, stuff like that. So this card is really crazy. I did run into situations where I saw 2 of it in my opening hand, and I really didn't like that, so I might drop this back down to a 2 of. But as of right now, I'm really liking it at 3. If I do drop 1, I'll probably drop it for a Math Mech subtraction. Next card is 2 Parallaxes. This card is absolutely crazy, but don't play 3 of it, because it is searchable and it is once per turn. All your combos that use Codec search this card, so just keep it as a 2 of, and you'll love it. Next cards I played were Spinney and Gazelle. Now Spinney and Gazelle, a lot of players aren't playing these. I really like it because it turns your Lady Debug into a 1-card OTK. Because you use these, you go into Update Jammer, and then you update Jammer into transcode into access code. Very easy push for game just with 1 card. Next card I played was 1 Math Mech Addition. I think you need to be running either Addition or Subtraction, just because you can summon them pretty much for free out of a relatively empty game state. If your opponent has monsters and you don't, you can always just throw these out. You don't have to worry about controlling a Cyber's monster, which is something that's really useful for just kind of starting off your boards without using out your normal summon, or extending after your opponent gets rid of your board. Next card was 1 Dotscaper. Pretty self-explanatory card. Easy normal summon. Brings itself back. You send it off of Code Generator, so it's an additional extender. You need to be running it. Now the next card that I ran, and the first real big change, is I added back in Sea Archiver. Now Sea Archiver, the reason that I'm running it now is because it has combos with Firewall Dragon, and that's pretty much it. It's an alright card. It's just not a really like spectacular extender. It's just kind of important now because of Firewall Dragon. Now the next cards that I ran were 1 Synec Gadget or Cyber's Gadget, 1 Link Infraflyer, 1 4 Mudskipper, and 1 Code, or Gachiri Attic Mister. So these are just additional cards that you can search off of Synec Codec, and Gachiri is probably the best one because it makes one of your monsters to where it cannot be destroyed, or it's unaffected by opponent's card effects until the end of the next turn. So you'll go 4 Medskippers, search this. This is a full recovery on its own. That's just an additional searcher for your wind. These are actually very important. I would not run the deck without these. Very good cards. And that's it for the monsters, so let's head on to the spells. Triple Signet Mining. It's Rhoda. It's a searchable Rhoda that just requires a discard to use. It's busted. The next card, if you do not know what this card is, this is Synec Codec. This is probably the single best card in the deck. This is a once per turn per attribute search every single time you summon a Code Talker monster. So in this deck, you can search up to 5 times with this card. You can search everything but fire with this, just because as of right now we are not playing a fire Code Talker. Next card we played was 1 Signet Optimization. Absolutely run this card. This card is an additional normal summon, and it turns all of your Code Talkers into Armades. But most importantly, you can use this to normal summon an Ibli that you search, so that you can give your opponent an Ibli on the 5th summon if you do not start with your Ibli. So this is an additional way to play around Nibiru. 1 Sanctuary. You'd think this wouldn't require much explanation. It's Sanctuary, it's a search, easy discard target, but this does have a secondary effect that's actually very useful in this deck. You can pay 1,000 when your opponent declares an attack. I think it's when an attack is declared in general with one of your linked monsters. Pay 1,000, gain life points equal to that monster's attack, and then that monster's attack becomes 0. Now, when a 0 attack point monster attacks a 0 attack point monster, nothing will actually happen, which is important because your opponent can attack into you with Ibli in order to try and destroy it, and you can just pay 1,000 and be sure that their Ibli doesn't die. So very useful in solidifying your boards and being sure your opponent can't just easily out them. Next card we played was 1 Called by the Grave. I was testing this out today, and it didn't come up. This was mostly to out like Drolls or anything else that would be potentially hazardous in this deck, but I didn't really run into anything today that would have caused any problems, and I never saw it in the first place. So I don't really know how that card worked out. We'll see. Next card we played 1 Monster Reborn and 1 1-for-1. Additional starter / extender and spectacular extender. And then I ran 1 Forbidden Droplets. You don't really need to run this card. I just like it as a 1-of in this deck because it's a free... It's really good as a 1-of, just because you always have the ability to get rid of Sanctuary to use it. So it's always at least kind of live. I would never want to see more than 1 of this card, though, so I only run 1 of it. That's it for the spells. For traps, I ran 1 Signet Conflict. It's a searchable counter trap. Opponent can't use cards that this card negated until the next turn, I believe. But it also banishes it, so I think it's probably one of the better counter traps they've ever printed. Very good card. And then last thing I ran was triple Infinite Impermanence. I think this is the better card to run in terms of hand traps when you don't know what you're going up against, especially in this deck, because this can out a lot of cards going first or second that would be potentially troublesome. You just need to know what this deck can and can't deal with. So being able to out stuff is really good. Keep your stuff on the board, keep your combos rolling. All really spectacular. On to the extra deck. I ran 2 Baelinks. Search for your Sanctuary, and then Baelinks into Baelinks to summon your Gazelle. And then getting this in the extra monster zone with 1 Engrave is really good to keep your extra links live. 1 Talkback Lancer. Talkback Lancer is a tribute to summon back a Code Talker. You use this to make your extra links now. And then you also can just use this if your opponent doesn't out it to recover your entire board. Lingaribo negates traps. It's an additional link 1. Pretty self-explanatory. 1 Code Talker inverted and 1 Code Talker. Now these are attributes for your codec, dark and light, but inverted is particularly good with codec because it lets you summon a Cyberse monster from hand. So use this as chain link 1, and then you use codec as chain link 2. So you search a light monster, and then you get a special summon off of this. Do know, though, that you cannot do that if you do not already control a Cyberse monster in hand, so don't cheat with this card. The other link 2s that we ran were 1 Splash Mage and 1 Update Jammer. I think I summoned this every single game I went second. Really easy OTKs with Access Code Talker, and Splash Mage is just a monster reborn. It's busted. On to link 3s, I ran 2 Transcode. Free monster reborn for a link monster. 2 of it comes up constantly. I would not run less than 2. Also, being an Earth attribute, you can search your Earth cards. One Xcode Talker, you use this for your extra links now. Cards that it points to cannot be destroyed by card effects, and they gain 500. So use this alongside Avermax to be sure that your Avermax cannot be destroyed by... normally wouldn't be able to be destroyed by battle, cannot be targeted, and cannot be destroyed by card effects. It makes Avermax even better. And then it's wind, so used for your combos. Shooting Code Talker, probably the worst card in this entire extra deck. You use it just because it's water. When Decode Talker Heat Soul comes out, just take this out for Heat Soul. You're already playing the Salamangreat, so you just take out like Seahorse and play the Salamangreat package in its place. Then Firewall Dragon. So Firewall Dragon does change up this deck quite a bit. You run Firewall Dragon instead of Trigate Wizard now, largely because of Ibly. So if your opponent has out your Ibly, you give your opponent your Ibly, and they try and normal summon a monster so they can link off with the Ibly, you just bounce back that normal monster, and then they're stuck with the Ibly. And then normally you're able to get your Salamangreat field spell, so you can just be sure your opponent really can't special summon. And just from there, you normally win. So I like this a lot more than Trigate Wizard. It's also nice that, you know, you can set up multiple bounces, and then if your opponent outs one of the bounces, you still have another one, so you can protect this with Gachiri, and just be sure that your bounce is going to be there. The other 2 Link 4s we run were 1 Abramax. Use this for combos, and you use this for something to roll back on if your stuff gets interrupted. Avermax Pass is still pretty aight. Access Code Talker is absolutely busted. This card never should have been generic. This card always should have been Cyberse locked. I have no idea why they made this generic, but it's even better in this deck. It's a dark attribute, Code Talkers. You can search with Codec, and then you usually have 6 attributes in grave, so you can pop six cards. On to the side deck. None of this really matters. I never really saw any of it. Nibiru, pretty self-explanatory. You can also link this card off with for Code Talker, just because you're not summoning a Cyberse monster on your turn, and Code Talker only calls for effect monsters. You should also always side Fantastical Dragon Phantasme, just to be sure that you have like an inherent out to Dragon Link. It's just free fixes for hand. I didn't see any Dragon Links at locals. I don't think anyone at the locals I went to plays Dragon Link, so I just didn't side it. But definitely side Phantasme. Dark Ruler no more. Really good. Never saw it. Cosmic Cyclone. Really good. One time I saw it, it got Harpy Feather Dusted before I could use it. Never saw this, never cited it in. Never really needed to, but this is really good against combo decks. You just activate this going first, and then they don't really get to play, and then you go on your turn, and you just kill them turn 3. Busted card. evenly matched. I saw this one game, and I actually lost that game. So, really good normally. I just didn't have the stuff that I needed to extend properly afterwards. So it's unfortunate, but it's a good card nonetheless. And then Red Reboot, pretty much a no-brainer. Access Code's such an easy OTA in this deck, there's no reason you shouldn't be citing this. Yeah. I'm pretty confident in this deck. Especially the extra deck. I think the extra deck's pretty much perfect. I can't imagine anything really changing this up unless they release a new broken card, or we get Decode Talker Heat Soul soon, but Decode Talker Heat Soul won't even change up this deck too much. It just changes and makes Shooting Code Talker into that, makes it a little bit more useful. But thank you for watching the deck profile if you got this far into it. It's much appreciated. Thanks for watching the video. Tell me in the comments section down below what you'd like to see next, and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.